The whole town's talking about the Jones boy.
Hi, this is Dick Lyons from I Remember Radio, special edition. And then along came Jones. What am I talking about? I didn't know what was going on. I had left KFXM about 2 weeks before a major change, and that was the Jones Boys. I have three of them right here on the air with us today. In fact, the leader of the pack, as usual, was Casey Jones, also known as Al Anthony, and we like to call him around the station the amazing Italian stallion, of which I'm sure he's still well known. Al, how's it going?
Mary's out of the room, so you can say that.
Okay, well, you are the Italian stallion.
All right. I just looked up a couple of tune sheets, and I don't want to go shuffling through them now to do them. Anyway, Tom Brokaw was the secretary for AFTRA in the Southern California region. And somebody, I think, from KFXM, KDUO, got in touch with AFTRA and asked them to come down and see if we can get this guys to sign up. Well, he did, and they did, and we had a vote. And before we could get it certified, Howard Tullis found a woman who was like, you know, she'd probably be broadcasting version of Nurse Cratchit or Nurse Ratchet. She was an old Jewish lady, and she was tough as nails, and boy, I mean, nothing fazed her. Anyway, so somehow he brought her in. We took all of her orders from her. But how we got into the situation, Noreen Dixon, our then bookkeeper, somehow or other got from our regular accountant a way to figure out payroll. And it's pretty unorthodox, but I guess it was legal. And here's what happened. If a guy worked 40 hours, then he got, for $100 a month, we paid more than that, but
not much.
Then if he worked 1 hour over or any number of hours over that, then there was a sliding scale that she would refer to, which automatically lowers the hourly rate.
I had a big fight with her about that. In fact, it was half-time for overtime. You got paid half your rate.
But
I thought it was extremely unfair. By the way,
it was legal. I hated it, but I had to try to explain to everybody why it was happening and so on. And so Howard told us okayed it, and so anyway, it got a little iffy. But on November 15th, 1968, I always had my two alarm clocks go off in the morning at 6 o'clock. So I could hear both stations at the same time on two different radios. And it came on, and all I heard was white noise.
Uh-oh.
And I went to the other station, and white noise. I said, damn it. They walked out. So they had called strike, and they walked out, but the stations were off the air. So I was the only guy that had a first-class license. And by the way, I have it right here.
Oh, yeah, I had one of those.
May 1953. Anyway, you'll know who this is, Dick. Let's see.
Oh, Johnny Helm.
No, Bill Ogden.
Oh, Ogden, Bill, yeah.
He was in the house on the little house on the Olive in Burbank.
He was the greatest teacher I ever had.
Yeah. So okay. Anyway, I was the only guy on the station at the time that was there then, because everybody walked off, and they disconnected interconnected inner switch. I can't even know what you call it. But you open the transmitter door and it disables the transmitters from going on.
Yeah.
So I figured that out. Okay, so I jumped in my car, went over across the golf course to the KFXM transmitter and shut the door, turned the transmitter on, and went back and put the station on the air, put an album on. And then I went to KDUO to try to get it on, and it wouldn't come on. So they did the same thing at the mountaintop at Box Springs Mountain, which is quite a ways away from the station.
Yeah.
So I got somebody to go up there and shut the door, and I got it on the air. And so there was a long time. I don't know how long it was. I mean, it was months and months and months and months that it lasted. So I didn't know what to do in the meantime. But since I was the only guy that had the license and the only guy there that was a disc jockey or had been a disc jockey, so I was on the air for 22 hours nonstop, running both radio stations and the news in between.
Wow.
And there was nobody I could get to come to work, and they really had me over a barrel. So finally, I called Danny Dare, and he was up in Klamath Falls or somewhere like that. And I asked him to come down and help me if he could. And he said, sure, I'll be right there. So he said, I'll grab a plane and I'll be there. So that was good. I was going to have relief because he had a license. And Brokaw and our disc jockeys found out somehow that he was coming. They went to Ontario Airport, waited for him to come in, get off the airplane, and they kidnapped him.
What?
Yeah, and they put him in the car and drove to Howard Johnson Hotel, which is like about 1,000 yards away from the radio station. And they put him in a room in there, and they wouldn't let him go. And because he was just going to hang me out to dry.
Wow.
So anyway, finally, after 22 hours, he showed up and he helped me out. And I put one of the sales guys on the air. And then at the time we had Tiger Tots, and these were interns that came to the station, and I put them to work running errands for us and delivering the tune sheets and odds and anything. And I know that Dave is going to say, and he always sent me to get gas in his car. And that was.
Let me introduce Dave before you get into the Tiger Tots. Dave's right here. Hi, Dave. You were Tom Jones, right?
I was.
Tom Jones. And then we also have Gary. Gary, I don't know if you had an air name, but were you not on the air?
My wife's name on it. I don't know why.
Well, that's okay. But anyway, Gary was more than a Tiger Top, but he was one of your assistants.
DJ, the chief engineer.
Yeah, he was chief engineer. So
yeah,
you hung in there.
But he also worked on the air. Good disc jockey.
I love
Good.
it.
Wow.
We had so much fun.
It's fun. I couldn't believe I was even getting paid. Go ahead, Al. Dave, do you have any comment that you can make so far?
Well, I will tell you that that I think it was a Friday was the longest Friday I've ever lived. Al had us doing all kinds of weird things during that night. I was on KDUO, actually. My first flip of the mic switch was on KDUO. And
what a way to break into radio.
Yeah, but the funny story prior to that, with at least mine, is that 2 weeks before this happened, I had gone down to LA, and I should say gone out to LA, and got I took my third class test, passed it, and so I was waiting for my third class license. And so here I am in front of Al and the world, he was trying to get people to come on the air. And he said, now, wait a minute, you got your license, right? And I said, well, Al, I don't have it. They haven't sent it to me. Noreen Dixon got on the phone and called the FCC and actually got permission because they saw that I had passed the test. They gave us permission for me to go on the air.
Cool.
That was crazy. But anyway, so I think I was in total that first weekend, I think I was with Al, gosh, at least 35, 40 hours nonstop. I mean, it was an amazing time.
So back to the strike. They kept Danny in there and wouldn't let him go. And pretty soon he started threatening him. And I can't remember what I did, but it must have been something. Or maybe we got Noreen Dixon to scare the hell out of him. So anyway, they let him go and he came. And he had his first class license. Okay, so now I'm getting some staff. And I put Al Barnett on. He's a salesman, so I put him on KDUO. And I put the sales manager, Bob Manel, on as well. And pretty soon I had, all the shifts kind of covered. And I said, if nothing else, just put music on and let it play. And every half hour, you identify the station and you don't have to say anything else. So that's pretty much what everybody did to start with. So I told you, okay, Danny finally came. So I'm thinking, here are all these guys that were all high rated disc jockeys on the ratings on both stations. And I thought, oh, hell, what are we going to do? I mean, there's no way I could replace them, that quickly and rebuild the station. So somehow, I don't know, maybe it was maybe a message from, from up there. I remembered that one of the songs that I liked was by the Mills Brothers was called The Whole Town's Talking About the Jones Boy. And I happen to think there's a lot of famous Jones people. So that's where I got the inspiration for the Jones Boys. Excuse me, but the song said the Jones Boy. So I took the record into the production studio and I re-recorded it. And when I got to the end where it says Jones Boy, I just jumped in and said, and so I made it Jones Boys. And that's where they come. So I named everybody Jones. And it's really strange. I mean, as good as everybody was and the ratings were and everybody on the air was that good, just leaving the station like that, it could have easily crippled us. But I don't know, because of the promo. We never said that the regular guys weren't there. And I think a lot of people thought that the regular guys were doing this Jones Boys promotion. So after about 45 days of Jones Boys, the ratings came out, and the ratings were higher when the Jones Boys were doing broadcasting on both stations than it was over the last time that the regular disc jockeys were on the air. That was kind of disheartening.
People were curious, though. You had some publicity that went along with it, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, what you see posted up there is our Tiger Mag. So I used their Tiger Mag, and I didn't put any pictures on the back where normally the disc jockeys' pictures were, but I put stars and the names of the particular Jones guys in the stars. And I put them also on the tune sheet and on the Tiger Mag and all that. And so we just, went on the Jones Boys promotion. And most people nobody really said anything. And so I guess most people didn't really know it.
Did the newspaper do a story or something? Other mediums carry the story?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They jumped on it.
Yeah. So people knew and they were tuning in to find out what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a great promotion, which it
Yeah,
was.
and came in, also our competitor went on the air and made all kinds of comments about, what's happening, that the guys are not, the jockeys are not there, and so we got a lot of publicity. And so in the meantime, through the Tiger Mag and through all my connections I had, where I sent the Tiger Mag to the tune sheets and everything we did with the radio station, I sent all the time to all the radio stations, all the PR companies, all the record companies, all the promotion guys, all the distributors, and all that, and they all kind of went along with it. Oh yeah, well they're doing the Jones Boys, so it went pretty smoothly, and it lasted, I don't know, probably almost a year or something like that, and then they decided they weren't going to continue with the strike, so they asked for their jobs back. And legally, Gladys Selvin, Nurse Ratchet, the other Nurse Ratchet,
Maureen.
told us, okay, well, you can do that. You have to give them their jobs back, but you don't have to keep them. But it was good to have them back. It was good. And they were kind of defeated, and so they kind of all gave it up, and broke out, went back to his real job. And so that was the only strike that AFTRA ever called that had never, like to this day, had never been consummated.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Dave, how was it crossing the picket line?
Yeah, those were all my friends. I was a 17-year-old kid. I don't think they put two and two together all that well. But I will tell you that there was one incident where a person on the line put a baseball bat through a windshield of a car that I was in. I was a passenger, and I didn't get hurt, but the police were involved. And Al, I don't know if you remember this or not, but actually that incident went to trial, and I won't say who this was, but this person was being charged with all kinds of things. And I was called as a witness. And before I took the witness stand, the person that was being charged in the hallway threatened me. Told me he'd come and get me. And so I thought, you couldn't get me while I was doing things right under your nose. I doubt if you're going to do anything. So I took the witness stand. I told the truth, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they settled the case before the judge rendered a verdict. But what happened there was, I think it was the day after that incident, Al called me at home and he said, now I had been up all night. He called me and he said, we need to go to Hollywood. I said, okay, let's do that. And so he said, meet me at the station and we're going to go down to Hollywood. So we went to Howard's, I guess it was his apartment or his condo, or it seemed like that. It was
his Bel Air home.
Oh, okay. So there was a couple of attorneys there, and here's this 17-year-old kid in the middle of all this going, oh my heavens, what have I got myself into? And Al looked at me at one point during all these meetings that were going on. He said, you're going to be all right. And I thought, I'm going to be all right? Does this mean I did something wrong? I honestly didn't know. I was very naive. And but that was an amazing time. But it didn't affect my my air quality. Let's put it that way.
One of the
Good.
things Oh, go ahead, Dick.
No, you have a really good voice. I admired it when I met you a few minutes ago. So you were a perfect fit. I was interested in asking Gary how it went for him, because without Gary, I don't think you'd have been able to stay on the air.
Well,
I tried not to get in any trouble, but I think I messed up a couple of cars going up to Box Springs, and I thought for sure that I was going to get fired. And I walked into Al's office and told him the story, and he just smiled.
What's
But
the story? What was the story?
For his first day at work, he wrecked our truck.
Oh,
Like that, yeah. I think there was somebody with me though. I basically let him drive, and he drove like a bat out of hell. And so and then I said, look, man, I'm gonna get out of the car and I'll get a ride. He says, well, here, why don't you drive? Okay, I'll drive. And my first day, and driving down Box Springs Road is nasty, especially the first day. And I think I did some damage to the truck. But Al got a kick out of it.
That Gladys Sullivan I told you about, she put in some rules for the strike that I was so against, but she said, this is what you have to do. You must do this. So, couple of things. They were running up the phone bill, the disc jockeys, because they like to hustle the chicks over, especially in the overnights.
Yeah.
And our phone bill was like be hundreds of dollars extra over and above the thousands that we already paid every month. And I found out that these guys were on the phone talking to. So that was all part of the deal. And she said, well, you must disconnect those phones so that they cannot call out. So that way it was costing us money anyway. It cost a lot of money to use the phones at that time. Wow. And so I put in the payphone. Oh my God, I got international fame for that. That damn Al, after they put a payphone.
Where was that, Al?
In the hallway, right outside the engineering office.
Oh, what is that?
But you know what they did? They still one up me. Somebody realized that you can pick up the phone and hit the cradle button and hit it. And the number of times you hit it, that number would be the number represented. So like if you started with an 8, you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's your number. So pretty soon they're calling using that trick with the phone. So then I had to fix it so that they can only call 911 and they couldn't accept any calls. It's got pretty hairy at the time. So then I had Coke machines in there, and somehow or other they found a way to get into the beverage machines and steal all the beverages. So I put another machine in that you probably have seen these, that all the bottles were in this kind of cradle and open to the top. And when you put money in it, you pull it to the slot and pull the bottle out. They got me again. Somebody realized you take the cap off, you use a straw, you can drink all the pop you want. So, Mike, you can see some of the things that you said that I had to deal with trying to herd all these cats.
I want to talk to Tom Jones for a minute because he, other than you, he's the only person we have that was on the air at that time. What shift did you do, Tom, Dave? What name would you like to use today?
Well, I I would say, I'd have to go back to my notes, but I would say I probably did every single shift there was.
Wow.
I filled in a lot, just on both stations, not just KFXM. But let me tell you how, now remember, I had a third class license. Well, how was I on KFXM? That was 1,000 watt, need a first.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we had a little fire. And when that happened, we went down to 250 watts. And then I was able to run the station on my third class.
Yeah, and
So-
not 250 watts, non-directional.
Yeah,
And at 590, that was one flamethrower.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was. Yeah. So so I was, virtually I was on both stations, mostly KFXM though, and but I did at the beginning there weekends, and I mean weekends, like beginning to end kind of weekends. But yeah, I was just a fill-in guy, and anytime Al wanted me, I was there. I'll say
Wow.
that.
Yeah,
That's the kind of people you need working for you.
yeah, and I seem to have a lot of that. They just are loyal people, and even the guys that went out on strike, they didn't hold anything against me. They really held it against the company, and they realized that I didn't have any choice about doing that, and it just was, somebody had to do it, and the future of the station pretty much depended on having control of that at the time, at that market, because the market was small enough compared to LA that they tried to put LA union wages in a market with San Bernardino, Riverside, in Ontario, and all those little stations out there could not have afforded doing that. And so, that's kind of what was the motivation about trying to keep it from happening. But
One quick question, Al, I'm curious about. How did the sales department handle it, and how was sales? Did it affect sales, your billing?
no, the signal improved.
No, not that. Not about the signal. About, let's see, Stater Brothers was advertising, and they had union people, cashiers.
Yeah,
Was there any problem with Stater Brothers weather, Stater Brothers sponsoring things?
no, you know why?
Why?
Because that was the only, when Howard and John and Ben Pascal was the president of the company at that time, and they buried him under the transmitter too. Howard and John did. But that fire, back to that, unknown origin. But that was another test I had to go through. So I got to say everything, 3 o'clock in the morning. Hello, Mr. Anthony. Yes. You have something to do with that radio station over there in by the golf course? Yeah. He says, well, I'm the fire chief, and I want to tell you that it's on fire. And what? It's always 3 o'clock in the morning. Every call I had that was bad, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we had an old Collins transmitter at KFXM, and it had seen its days. So I decided, okay, I'm going to have to fix this. So I called Gates, and I wanted a 1,000 watt transmitter, and they said, well, we don't have any. We're building them. We got some cooking on the line. And another little trick I pulled is I got them to pull the first one in line to be completed and go to a customer. So I got them to send it to me, put it on an airplane, send it to Ontario Airport. I called a moving guy, traded off some advertising for him to go there and unload it off the truck, off the plane, and take it and install it. and we put it up. So we got a brand new transmitter, which was really good. And it during all the testing and so on like that, it was even better signal than it was before because we were testing on 250. And so that was another little miracle I pulled out of my pocket. But I enjoyed doing that. That was, I guess it must be my mafia background.
Were you talking to John Hearn or Tullis every day? Or
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And they just said, we don't care how you do it, just do it. We don't care what you do or what you have to do, just do it. So, okay.
So was there ever any talk of giving into the union ever over the year?
No, the consultant, I told you about the consultant, Gladys Sullivan, an old Jewish lawyer who was a specialist in labor, National Labor Relations Board, specialist in unions and stuff. She just did everything she could to keep us out of trouble. Everything that we did, we could do only right up to the line, and that's what we did. So Howard would talk to us, say, well, what if, let me see, what if we did this and did this and did this? What would happen? Well, you get fined, and you have a chance of possibly losing your license. And she said, what else? Anything else? Can I go to jail? Yes. Go to jail. Oh, can Al Anthony go for me? Thank God he said that. She said no. So we didn't do what that she was trying to do at the time.
I mean, was Howard so cheap that he wouldn't give the guys sodas? You know, go and buy sodas. You had to have a machine there that they had to trick to steal the soda. I mean, these guys are working, you know, in the hardest circumstances in radio and during a strike, and they make them pay for their sodas. I mean, it just sounds to me like bad PR.
Yeah.
Dick, I have to, I'm going to have to confess something here.
This is the place to do it, Dave.
Well, it's bothered me this whole time. And so now is the time, I believe. Okay. Remember, I was a Tiger Tot.
Yep.
I was the guy who filled those machines. I was the guy who had a key.
Ooh.
The whole time I worked there.
Ooh.
Al, I owe you a dime. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute.
You took one?
I did.
Good for you.
I did.
Don't worry, statute of limitations is over anyway, so you're okay.
Okay.
You're forgiven also.
I feel way better now. Thank
you. So Dave, as long as we're talking to you, I'm curious about some of your other experiences. Here's a guy, 17 years old. I don't know if you're out of high school or a senior or what, and you're working your butt off, you know, as a DJ, probably having more fun than you ever had in your life, even though it was under those difficult circumstances. Tell me some interesting things that happened, because when I was there, I was getting phone calls from all kinds of people, all kinds of places. We used to get girls to come down by the pool and talk to them through the glass. And, I mean, that place was unbelievable. And since Al was such a cool guy, he sort of let us do it. He said, don't let them in the studio, but you can talk to them through the glass. And of course, you know where they ended up.
I had the studio. I had the two-way installed just for that purpose.
I know, it was great. So that's one of your things. You're a great boss. You didn't pay anything, but nobody wanted to quit.
Yeah.
You know, go to Cayman in a cow pasture.
And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I used to get calls from the guys at the Holiday Inn saying that there are people out there, the music is too loud, the people are out there drinking, the people are out there on their lawn chairs over by the window and drinking, singing, making noise, dancing. 3 o'clock in the morning.
Somebody told me it was a cheap date. You can pick up your girlfriend and take her over to KFXM and pay a dime for a Coke and sit there all night.
We
Yeah.
used to take,
I think that, well, I have reason to believe that the transmitter fire was set because the fire department said that there was accelerant poured on the outside of the building.
So the arson investigators never arrested anybody.
Uh-uh.
Oh.
Although we got a lot of tips on who it was. But what to do? Now the transmitter is gone. The station couldn't go on the air because the fire shorted out the control boards and all that kind of stuff. So I got literally a whole new control room and transmitter, all new on insurance because that happened. In order to get them on the air that fast, though, I called Buck Owens and I said, Buck, I know you have a remote, some remote gear with a couple of turntables on it. He said, yeah, I do. I said, if I can borrow it for a while. We had a fire and I said, I can't afford to miss any time on the air. So he said, sure. He said, I'll send it over. So he sent it over. So within about 30 hours, I had the new transmitter sitting in the transmitter building. I had the remote all set up, all remote equipment. I was on the air within 30 hours from the time that.
That's amazing, really amazing. Well, the other Jones boys, and well, Dave, you're the other Jones boy, and then there's Gary, who was the chief engineer. What else stands out in that year in your mind? What do you think? Uh-oh, there's his after card.
Dick, one thing I need to say is that, yeah, we were a ragtag bunch, mostly, and I'm certainly speaking about myself. But I will tell you this, Al really, I don't know exactly how to say it. I don't like the word demand because I don't think Al was that kind of guy. But he did show us that if we followed the rules, we kept things tight, we followed protocol especially in the studio, that we would create a sound that people would like. And I can say overall that we did that. And this wasn't a fun joke kind of thing. It was, for me, it was really serious.
Mm-hmm.
And here 17 years old, and I'm looking at that time, that was going to be my career. Mm-hmm. So it was important that I stayed right with what my management was telling me to do.
Yeah.
So when you ask if there was shenanigans going on, maybe, but at least I'm talking about my shifts. But I got to tell you, it was always in the back of my mind that I had to follow what Al had told me. And
you're a professional. You were a professional.
Yeah, I was trying to be, for sure.
The show must go on.
Do you happen to have a picture of yourself from those days?
Interestingly enough, I through a series of events, I lost all my air checks. I had quite a few of them. I had a lot of photos, both in the studio and around the station. I had some, I don't know if you remember the purple dune buggy that we gave away. That was something that I took home with me every night because otherwise I think it would have been stolen.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I have one picture that was actually published in the Tiger Mag, and that's it. That's all I have.
How about describing your height, your weight, and your description? Give us a description of who that Tom Jones
Who
was.
Tom was. uh, so Tom was about half of me. I'm sure I grew this way, but I definitely grew this way. And so I was probably 100 pounds. My waist was probably 20. Well, in fact, I know it was 27. Inseam 27. I was a runt little kid.
And with flaming red hair.
Yep.
Wow, you were the D. Jones boy.
Tom Jones.
Yep. Yep. So, we had so much fun. I'm telling you, it was, but my fun came from every day after I had been on the air or whatever, Al would stop me somewhere in the station. He'd say, "Hey, you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good." That was enough for me.
I'll get the hell out of my office.
No, you never said that to me. You
But
never said that to me.
Gary, you talk about getting out of my, get the hell out of my office.
Yeah, I'd always say something back to you. But I got to tell you, and I'm not just saying this because we're, the four of us are doing this, but out of my probably close to 40 years in the radio business, Al was the best GM I ever worked with. He helped me through a child that I had that was very sick and was in and out of Loma Linda a lot. And he helped me get through that. And he would just had the sparkle of making you happy. And I learned a lot from him too, about radio and things going on and
Life.
he has a great sense of humor.
And everybody not only was loyal to a point of the strike, but they got along. I never remember any infighting with any of the other disc jockeys. You just created an atmosphere. And that's why it really shocked me 2 weeks after I left that here was this strike that was hitting all the newspapers and LA TV stations and the fire of the transmitter. I mean, this was serious stuff. This wasn't, kid stuff.
Well, and what also happened then was that they did secondary boycott to all of our advertisers.
That's what I want to know. I want to
Yeah.
hear about that.
Oh, Bill Ellis in particular.
Ford dealer, right?
Yeah, he had a little Ford dealer in Rialto, and he sees these guys out there with the picket signs, and he goes out there and he starts chewing them out and screaming at them for being in front of his business. I mean, it had nothing to do with him. Why are they there? Get the hell off my property. And they didn't go. So he goes back into his office and he comes back out brandishing a gun.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah. And not that they ever use it, but they were scared. They ran. And that happened to a couple of our clients. They're pretty loyal because we treated our customers really, really well and fair with the advertising prices. But back to Stater Brothers. When Howard and John and Pascal took over the station, all the advertisers left.
why?
They just, because there was a new company and the people that were there before just went and say, oh, they're going to do this to you and they're going to do that. And then you better cancel your advertising and put it elsewhere, put it in the paper. And so by the time we finally took over, there was only one client that was still on the air. And that was Stater Brothers, where you could buy red ripe tomatoes for 29 cents a pound. And give the weather and say, that's the Stater Brothers weather. Brought to you by Stater Brothers, so-and-so location. We rotate the location. And so they never left. And we were charging them $15 a spot to do the weather, including the weather, along with a little 15-second commercial for Stater Brothers. And because of that, Howard said, don't you ever do anything to get rid of those guys. Don't you ever raise their rates, and don't you ever do anything but treat them as well as you can, because that's the only advertiser that stayed with us, and he considered that was a good luck charm. And so they stayed with us, and they're probably still with them now that the station's gone. They're out doing it on the street corner.
Well, that was a fun thing for me when I was on the air. I loved that. We at night I read my own news, of course. I didn't have Sherman Mason. And I just love that jingle, you know, just a shout out, Stater Brothers weather. And you just could hit it right away, give the weather in 2 sentences or keep it short to the point and hit that record or the jingle, and we were off. And that station had a soul of its own. There was something about it. And I'm wondering, probably Al, you could answer this, but I'd like to direct it towards Dave. Did he still have the echo chamber on, and did you still feel the power of being on that station when you're on? It's like driving a new Ferrari. You know, you got, here's the keys, boy, go for it.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like when I was there.
Yeah, you know, I've had several people over my life ask me, well, gosh, what was it like the first time you sat in front of that console and you got ready to open that mic? And were you scared? And I said, wait a minute, hold on. You have to understand that I had been getting ready for this moment since I was 8.
Wow.
In my bedroom, being a KFXM disc jockey.
Cool.
And so here I am, and I'm getting ready to open that mic. I couldn't wait. I mean, I was ready. So
you're ready.
And just the power, I mean, y'all know. I mean, it's something that is hard to describe.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling. It's something really special. And I worked at probably a dozen different radio stations, half a dozen for long periods of time. And that station, even as good as Kathy was, but just because of the competition in the market, because of Al and what he created, we were riding the racehorse of the century. It was like, whoa, you took those controls and man, you played those quick start turntables and hit those buttons where the tiger roars over the ID. And of course, my name on the air was Lions, so I used it a lot. I had dreams about that radio station after I left. Went to LA, was on KLOS, KGBS. I would dream at night about KFXM. It was almost like being in the circus or something, and you became the ringmaster of all this energy and positivity that Al created the space for you to perform in. It was a real feeling of power. And I just wanted to find out if being in that strike, which was a super stressful situation, if that muted any of that energy.
Well, you know, I have to say that that's one thing that we, at least, well, I think I can speak for most of the Jones boys. We never felt that. We didn't feel that stress because Al was taking all that stress. He tried to keep it out of the studio.
Yeah.
And so we didn't feel that. Now we heard it from some other people maybe or whatever, but the majority of what you're talking about never hit us. We just didn't. Listen, I was a 17-year-old kid. I didn't even know what a union was. So, you know, I mean, this was not, I mean, I understood after they had come and spoken to my mother and tried to get me off the air. But, you know, I mean, I wasn't doing it for that.
It was your opportunity that came about through your intention as an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old, your whole life up to that time, that you wanted to do that. And
I know you're trying to wrap it up, but I do have a story
Good.
that involves one other Jones boy.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
I wish I could remember his what he went by. Talking about Bobby Blue. When Bobby came to the station, he lived out in an apartment in Ritchie Canyon, the Cooley Ranch area. And Bobby apparently had a hard time waking up to do his shift at 7 o'clock in the evening. So in the afternoon, Al would get a hold of me, and he told me, in fact, he'd say, "Here, take my car, and I want you to go out to Bobby's apartment, and I want you to wake him up. If he doesn't wake up, you have to do his shift." Well, okay, I was between a rock and a hard spot there because I wanted that shift.
Of course.
But I followed the rules. So several times I had to go out to Ritchie Canyon or Cooley Ranch and wake up Bobby Blue so he could come in and do his shift. I love the guy. I mean, I liked him a whole lot then, and I still like him a lot. But boy, he was hard to wake up. I'll tell you that.
He was on the air one night when a film crew was, while he was on the air, were going through town, and I think, I can't remember if it was White Line Fever or something Blacktop, I can't remember, but one of the movie companies wanted Bobby because he's driving through on their way to Vegas, coming down the 10 and then going north on the 15. And while they were going through, they had the radio on, and it was Bobby Blue on his show being in that movie.
Thank you, Al, for a great show. And then along came Jones, Dave, aka Tom Jones, and Gary. Even though you weren't a Jones, you really added a lot of interesting material, being the chief engineer.
Yeah.
This has been I Remember Radio. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on with me today. And I Remember Radio is something we all never want to forget.
I miss Bobby Blue being on. He had to call in sick, and maybe he didn't wake up or something.
Probably.
Yeah, he couldn't make it today.
We'll do another one with him.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Tiger Radio.
Yay.
Hey.
Thank you, guys.